Most folks think putting up a whole year's worth of chicken is something only our grandparents could manage. The truth is, it's simpler than you'd think, and it costs far less than the store ever will. My name is Eli Miller, and I've kept animals on this land since I was a boy, the same way my father did. If you'd like the old, plain ways of raising and storing your own food, click subscribe. That's what I share here. So let me show you, start to finish. Now, the whole of it begins long before you ever put a bird in a jar. It begins with the stock you keep, and here is where most folks go wrong at the very start, for they reach for the fast modern bird, the kind bred to grow so quick it can scarce stand on its own legs by the time it is grown, a bird that eats and is finished in 8 weeks, or falls over from its own weight before then. The old people never kept such a thing, and we do not either. What we keep is the old dual-purpose bird, the heavy, hardy sort that has served plain folk for 100 years and more. The barred rock, the buff Orpington, the Rhode Island red, the New Hampshire, a bird that lays you a good brown egg through the spring and summer and makes you a fine, honest meat bird when its laying days are through, or when its cockerels are grown out in the fall. Why the old bird and not the fast one? Because the old bird will do a thing the fast one never can. It will raise up its own young for you. A good heavy hen goes broody. She sets on her eggs, 3 weeks faithful, and hatches you a clutch of chicks, and mothers them herself, with never a lamp nor a machine nor a dollar spent. That fast modern bird has had the mothering bred clean out of it. It cannot hatch a thing. So keep the old stock, and your flock renews itself year on year, free, out of your own yard. That is the first plain secret, and the whole thing rests on it. So you keep a small laying flock through the year, a dozen hens, say, and a good rooster to head them. Come the spring, when a hen or two goes broody and settles herself down, cross and puffed on the nest, you let her be. You mark the eggs she is setting so you know the fresh from the old, and you give her a quiet, dark corner away from the others where none will trouble her. 3 weeks she sets, coming off but once a day to eat and drink and stretch her legs. And at the end of it, you will hear the little peeping under her before ever you see a thing, and then the chicks come out from under her wing, one at a time. And she has done for you what no store nor hatchery need ever do. Now, if you have no broody hen, or you want more birds than your hens will hatch, you raise the chicks yourself in a brooder, and that is no great trouble either. A box, a corner of the shed, a stock tank, anything that holds them and keeps the draft off. The one thing a chick must have above all else is warmth, for a chick cannot make its own heat the first weeks of its life. So you keep them good and warm, near 90 degrees that first week under the lamp, and you drop it back a little each week as they feather out. And you watch the chicks themselves to know if you have it right, for they will tell you plain. If they huddle all in a pile right under the heat, they are cold, bring it down closer. If they press to the far corners away from it, they are too hot, raise it up. When they are spread about easy and content, scratching and peeping soft, you have it just right. The chicks are a better judge of it than any thermometer ever made. They want clean water always, kept where they cannot foul it nor drown in it, and a good starter feed to get them going, or the old soft feed if you have a mind, hard-boiled egg, mashed fine, cornmeal, a little milk-soaked bread. And they want to be kept dry, for a damp chick is a dead chick soon enough. Keep them warm, keep them dry, keep them clean, and keep the water fresh, and you will lose but few of them. Quick word before we move on. A lifetime around animals teaches you more than fits in any one video. So I finally sat down and wrote it all out, start to finish, in a book. The feeding, the daily care, the little signs I watch for long before anything goes wrong, the links pinned at the top of the comments. That's the whole of it, laid out plain. No hunting through videos to find it. Take it or leave it. Now, back to the animals. So the chicks grow, and by 6 weeks or so, they are feathered and hardy and want to be out of doors. And here begins the part that costs you almost nothing, for from here on, the birds do the greater share of the feeding themselves. You put them out onto grass, a run, a yard, a bit of pasture, whatever you have, and a chicken left to range will feed itself on the bugs and the worms and the grubs and the green shoots and the seeds, and it will thrive on it, and the meat will be the better and the richer for it. That is the whole reason a home bird tastes like something, and a store bird tastes like nothing at all. The store bird never walked on grass nor ate a living thing in its life. Yours does, every day. And they earn their keep another way besides for a flock loose in the garden after the harvest. Will clean up the bugs and the slugs and the fallen seed and leave the ground manured and ready. So they feed you and they work for you both at once. You still feed them. Mind a scratch of cracked corn and grain of a morning and an evening, to keep them close and coming to you. And all the scraps off your table, for near nothing goes to waste on a place like this. The peelings, the trimmings, the sour milk, the stale bread, the garden leavings, it all goes to the birds and comes back to you as egg and meat. A chicken is the finest machine ever made for turning what you would throw away into what you would eat. And you keep grit before them, a little coarse sand or fine gravel, for a bird has no teeth and grinds its feed in its gizzard. With the grit it swallows. Without it, the feed does it no good at all. In the warm months, they will find near all they need themselves, if the range is good. It is the winter, when the ground is locked hard and bare, that you carry the greater share of their feed to them. So the summer bird is cheap to keep, and the winter bird costs you more, which is one good reason the harvest comes in the fall, before the lean cold months. So you are not wintering more mouths than you need. Now the daily care is a small thing, but it is the whole of it, for a flock wants seeing to every single day, morning and evening, without fail. And the greater part of that care is nothing but watching. You learn your birds how they stand, how they move, how they eat, the sound they make when all is well, and then when a thing goes wrong, you see it early, long before it comes to grief. A bird that stands off by itself, hunched and puffed up, its tail down, when the others are busy scratching that bird, is telling you something, and you go and take it up and look it over. A comb gone pale and shrunk where it should be red and full. A bird that will not eat, or one that eats but wastes away to nothing. The runny eye, the sneeze, the rattle down in the breath. On the chicks, the pasted vent the droppings dried and stuck over the back end, which will kill a chick if you do not clean it off gentle with a warm, damp cloth. And the mites and the lice, which you find by parting the feathers down at the vent and around the legs of an evening, and looking close at the skin, for they hide by day and come out to feed at night, and a bird eaten at by mites will pale and pine and stop its laying. None of it is hard to see once you are in the habit of looking, but you must look and look daily, for a chicken is a prey creature, and it hides its sickness as long as ever. It is bred deep in them not to show weakness, for the weak bird is the one the hawk takes first. So by the time a bird looks plainly sick, it has been unwell a good while and hid it from you. The good keeper does not wait for the plain sickness. He reads the small signs, the little standing off, the little going quiet, the drop in the laying, the birds slow to come at feeding time, and he acts on them early, before the whole flock takes it. That is the whole art of it, and it is no art at all, really, only paying attention. A body who looks at his birds every day, honest and unhurried, will know more of their health than any book could ever teach him. My father could walk the length of the run of a morning and tell you which bird was off before it had missed a single meal, and it was not any gift. It was only 50 years of looking. And a well-kept flock will pay you back tenfold for that daily care, in eggs and meat and the plain contentment of birds that thrive under the hand they have come to trust. And you keep the predators off them, for near everything in creation would like to eat your chickens. The fox and the coyote, the hawk and the owl up overhead, the weasel and the mink that will slip through a hole no wider than your thumb and kill the whole flock in a single night for the sport of it, the possum and the raccoon that come for the eggs and stay for the birds, the rat that takes the chicks and the feed both. So you make them a stout house, closed up tight every single night without fail. For the fox keeps no schedule, but comes when you are careless and you run good wire, dug down a foot into the ground at the edges so nothing burrows under it, and small enough in the mesh that a weasel cannot pass through. A chicken shut up safe at dusk, a chicken alive at dawn. And that nightly shutting up is the one chore you never once let slide. Not for weather, nor tiredness, nor company, nor anything else under the sun, for it takes but the one forgotten night to lose the whole of a year's work in an hour. So the season turns, and by the fall your birds are grown out, the cockerels heavy and near their full size, the old hens that have slowed their laying, and it comes time for the harvest. And this is the part the modern world has forgotten how to do, and forgotten how even to speak of plainly, for they would rather not know that the meat on the plate was ever a living creature at all. But the old people knew it, and did it with their own hands, and did it with respect, and I will speak of it the same way, plain and honest, but with the respect the thing is owed. The butchering was never a lonely chore on the old places. It was a day the whole family and often the neighbors came together for a working day, hard and long, but a good one. For many hands make the work light, and the fellowship makes it lighter still. I can see it yet from when I was a boy. The fire lit before dawn, under the great kettle, my mother and my aunts with their sleeves rolled, the long tables set up in the yard, and everybody with their task. The men would see to the killing, done quick and clean and merciful, for a creature that has fed you all its life is owed a swift and painless end, and there is no excuse ever for less than that. Then the birds are scalded, dipped in the hot water, not boiling, just hot enough to loosen the feathers and then plucked clean, which the young ones and the women often took up, sitting in a circle at it, plucking and talking and laughing the day along. Then the birds are drawn and cleaned and cooled, and by the day's end you have a great number of birds ready to put up, and the whole thing done in a single day. It would take one body alone the better part of a week. And nothing is wasted, hear me on that, for it is the very heart of the old way. The feet are scalded and peeled and cleaned and saved for the broth pot, for they make the richest broth of all, the necks and the backs and the bony bits into the broth. The good fat is saved and rendered, the liver and the heart and the gizzard, the giblets kept and eaten, for they are good nourishing food, and only a fool throws them out. The old people used the whole of the bird, every part that could be used, and counted it near a sin to waste what a creature had died to give them. That is a thing worth keeping, that respect. It costs you nothing, and it honors the animal, and it fills your cellar the fuller besides. Now we come to the storing, and this is where a year's supply is truly made. For a barn full of birds in October does you no good come February, unless you have put it up right. And the old plain way, the surest way, the way that needs no electric at all, is the canning. You take that chicken and you pack it raw into clean glass jars, a little salt to each jar, and nothing else needed. And you seal them and process them in the pressure canner, for meat is a low-acid food and must have the pressure canner to be safe. The boiling water bath alone will not do for meat, and I will not tell you otherwise, for that is a matter of your family's very safety and no place at all for old-timey stubbornness. Done right in the pressure canner, that chicken keeps on the shelf for years, no cold needed, ready to open and heat and eat. And I will tell you, there is little in this world so fine as a cellar shelf lined with jar after jar of your own chicken, put up by your own hands, glowing gold in the lamplight. That is a year of suppers sitting right there, and a peace of mind the store can never sell you at any price. I learned that canning at my mother's elbow, and she at her mother's, and so on back further than any of us rightly knows. It was the women's great work of the fall, the whole kitchen given over to it for days, the steam on the windows, and the jars coming out of the canner one rack after another, and my mother listening for that little ping of each lid sealing down, which was the sound of the winter being provided for. I never once in my boyhood knew a hungry February, and it was those shelves of jars that saw to it. The broth you can, the very same way, all those bones and feet and necks simmered down slow for the better part of a day into a rich golden broth, then strained clean and packed into jars and pressure canned right there alongside the meat. Nothing on the place makes a better foundation for a whole winter's soups and stews than a shelf of your own canned broth, and it cost you only the bones you would otherwise have thrown away. The fat you render, you take all that good chicken fat, the schmaltz, as some folks call it, and you melt it down slow and gentle. Strain it clean and pour it off into a crock or a jar where it sets up firm and pale, and it keeps a long while down in the cool of the cellar. And that rendered fat is a treasure for the cooking all the winter through, for frying your eggs and your potatoes of a morning. For the richness it lends a plain dish. The old people rendered every bit of fat off of every animal, and let none of it go. For good fat was dear and hard won, and not a thing to be wasted. And that is as true today as it ever was. There is an older way still, from before ever there were jars, the salting, and the cold cellar. A bird packed down deep in salt, or smoked, will keep a good long while. And in the hard cold of a northern winter, the old people hung and kept their meat in the spring house, or the cold cellar where the chill did the work a freezer does now. It is more trouble than the jars, and I will be straight with you that the canning has largely taken its place for good reason. But it is worth knowing the old way is there, for it needs nothing at all but salt and cold. And there may come a day a body is glad to know it. Some folks freeze a share of their birds too, and there is nothing wrong with it if you have the freezer and the power to run it. Many plain families keep a freezer now, or share a big one among several households. A bird wrapped up well and frozen keeps fine for a good while, but I will say this much for the canning over the freezing. The jar on the shelf needs no electric, fears no storm nor outage, and will keep for years where the freezer keeps only for months. When the power goes down in the ice storm, the man with the full freezer is in a hurry and a worry, and the man with the full cellar shelf sleeps easy in his bed. So I favor the old way. The jars, though, a bit of both together, is no bad plan at all. And through all the long winter, you keep your laying hens, the good young hens you held back from the harvest, in their warm house, and they carry on laying you eggs right through the cold, though fewer of them than in the flush of summer. So you are never wholly without fresh food off of your own place, even in the deep dead of the year. The cellar full of jars, the crock of good fat, the hens still laying out in the barn that is a family fed, and fed well, clear through to the spring, off a flock that fed its own self the greater part of the year, on grass and bugs and your own table scraps. Now let me say the plain word about what all of this saves you, for that is what draws most folks to it in the first place. The store will sell you a chicken cheap enough, that is true, if you do not ask it too close what is in the bird, nor how it was raised, nor what it truly tastes of. But raise your own on grass and scraps, hatch them out under your own hens, put them up in your own jars, and the cost of a whole year's meat comes down to almost nothing beyond your feed and your labor. And your labor on a thing like this is not a cost at all, but a good and satisfying way to spend your days. What you get for it is not only cheaper food, but far better food, and the knowing exactly what your family is eating and where it came from and how it lived and died, which is worth more than any figure on any price tag. That is a wealth the store cannot sell you and can never take from you. So there it is, start to finish, the keeping of the old hardy stock, the hatching of the chicks under a broody hen or in a simple brooder, the growing of them out on grass where they feed themselves the greater part, the daily watching that catches the trouble early, the guarding against all that would eat them, the harvest done with respect and nothing wasted, and the putting up of it all in jars and crocks that will feed your family clear around the year. It is the way it was always done, before folks forgot they could do it at all. And it is no harder now than it ever was then. It only wants the willingness to set your hand to it. Now I would dearly like to hear from you. Tell me down in the comments what you keep on your own place, or what you have in mind to start keeping the chickens, or anything else at all, and what old ways your own people handed down to you for the raising and the storing of your food. For there is a great deal of good knowing scattered out among you all, and I learn something from it every time. And tell me, too, what part of the country you are writing from, for I like to know where these old ways still live on, and it does my heart good to see just how far they reach. I read every last one. Next time, I want to show you how we keep those laying hens through the very hardest of the winter, how to keep them warm and laying when the cold comes down hard and mean, without any fancy thing at all, only the old plain way. For a hen that keeps laying right through the winter is a treasure, and there is a knack to it well worth the having. The old people fed their families off their own land with their own two hands, and knew where every bite came from, and wasted not a scrap of what a creature gave them. It was plain, honest work, and it made a plain, honest plenty. We forgot for a while that we could do it, but it was never truly lost, only set down for a time. And it is ours to pick back up again whenever we should choose to. The people who built this country with their hands lived just this way, and they wanted for nothing. And we are only now just starting to remember.